And welcome to 20 Meter Restart, Agree to Disagree Rugby League Podcast. I'm Hoonz.
I'm Nick.
And we're taking over from Ra, our fearless leader, who's not here. He's on holiday. And so we thought that we'll get the chance to host the show. Nick?
We'll get things rolling.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right, scores from round 7. Roosters over the Bulldogs 6-0. Warriors over the Dragons 20-12. Storm over the Broncos 34-20. Rabbitohs over the Raiders 42-22. Knights upset the Tigers 22-20. Cowboys 26-14 over the Titans. Parramatta 44, Manly 10. And the Sharks just beating the Panthers 26-22.
Ooh, big score lines. Anyway, Nick, who impressed you the most?
I would personally have to say Warriors. I think coming under a lot of pressure, losing to the Broncos at home, facing Dragons, who are the most informed team in the comp, and to dominate that game was really impressive to me. I think that really proved Warriors are about business, and they're not here to muck around this year. They're a new team. They've got a new outlook on the game, and they're looking like a big threat for finals. What about you?
Yeah, man. I must agree. There was a couple of teams that I had to toss around. I thought the Knights looked impressive with their comeback win.
Yep.
The Rabbits as well, with GI and starting to find top flight. But the Warriors at home have proven that this year that they're no joke.
Yeah.
After watching 7 games of theirs, and it was just like that they had an off game against the Broncos. Yeah. And, they deserve a lot of praise. And Isaac Luke, he was in the wilderness. Dude, he was in the wilderness for 2 years. And now look at him again. Look at him. He single-handedly just destroyed basically the Dragons' hopes of winning anything. Yeah. He swung momentum to the Warriors. And, the Warriors, I agree, is the team that's impressing me the most.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, man. With the Broncos and Cowboys, our two teams, what's your thoughts on them at the moment, at this stage? So 7 rounds, we're round 7.
We're talking Broncos or Cowboys?
We'll go Bronx first. Your team.
They've shown promising signs. I think beating the Warriors in New Zealand, that wasn't an out of form Warriors side at all. They still turned up to play, and Broncos still won that, beating the Tigers when they were in top flight in the first few rounds. I think that's definitely, to me, proven Broncos can be a top side. But I think, the Storm turned up the other night and the Broncos didn't. And I think that's our issue, is we really struggle against, just when we start losing a game, I really don't feel confident that we'll pull ourselves back into it. I think we're in sort of a pretty weak position, I suppose. And I think, especially losing McCulloch now for 6 weeks, that is absolutely crushing. And I'm not confident on who our next 5 games are against. But I know the Roosters are there. And I know Parramatta are there. Parramatta up and coming. But next week against the Rabbitohs, that's my biggest fear. Because they played phenomenally against the Raiders last week. GI is back. He's back in form. So I'm concerned, but I know they've got it in them. He's probably the basis of my logic there.
Yeah, with the Broncos, I see that they are phasing in and out of games, and I thought a prime example of that against the Storm was Anthony Milford. 0 to 0 in the space of, I'll say, 5 minutes.
If that, maybe
less. If that. Yeah. And knowing that now he has to step up as the main playmaker, which he's probably never have really done at all in his career.
No.
Because he's always had Ben Hunt there with the Bronx. Or he had a floating Justin Hodges back in the days in 2015. They still have Boyd, but someone's got to manage the team around. And I noticed that his natural instincts can get him into trouble. Really, it was like it was like when he has perfection when his natural instincts kicks in. He scores a try. It was an awesome try to get back into the game.
Yeah.
And then he leaves the ball. When there was a kick, he left that ball and he just relaxed too much. And you can't do that to the Storm. Just like one moment where he just faded out.
I mean, you can't do that to any team, let alone, where on the side of the field there, he's got either Josh Adokar or Suliasi Vunivalu.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason he would think, I'm probably fine leaving this, no one's going to run this down. It was just an absolute brain explosion, and in no circumstances really right for him to do what he did.
Yeah, so. and what's McCulloch out too now, and I hear that Josh Maguire might be going into the dummy half role, into the hooking role, and I just don't understand because his running game is going to be nullified with him being there. He's one of the strongest forwards in that Broncos side, especially his running game. You already lost Gillett through injury. Not too sure if he's coming back yet. It might take a while, but
he's not back till after Origin 1.
That's ridiculous. So you're already nullifying one of your potent forwards from running the ball. When they got Cody there. If Cody's not going to start as half. And Cody played phenomenally well when he came on. He actually changed that game. I felt he changed the momentum towards the Broncos.
Yeah.
And now we're going to see that maybe Josh Maguire, but knowing Wayne Bennett, he always throws curveballs just before games anyway.
Yeah. Look, can I just say actually, I think one of the reasons Cody came out and played really well was because his position is under fire at the moment. He's not in a safe spot anymore, as opposed to the start of the season where Wayne said, look, we guarantee you a starting halfback spot for the rest of the season. And he's come out, he hasn't played that well, he's not as confident, and he's not as hungry, I felt, anyway. And so now that they replaced him with Jack Bird, because he was injured for a round.
That's right. So it was only through injury where Cody lost his
spot. Yeah. And then he is healthy again, but Wayne Bennett still chose Jack Bird and Milford as the half pairing. And I think Cody sort of felt as if he needed to prove himself a little bit more. There was pressure on his position now. And I saw that with Ben Hunt towards the end of his, at least I think it was last year with the Broncos, where the signing of Benji sort of lifted his game a little bit because he knew his position wasn't safe anymore. He's not going to be... You've got Benji Marshall sitting on the goddamn bench. You're not safe there. You've got to earn your position. And I think that really did sort of help bring the best out of him in certain parts of the game. So I think Nick Arima needed this sort of a wake-up call. And I think, starting him next week is the right move. I don't know if that's what Wayne's going to do, but I think Cody sort of learned his lesson. I think you'll see a bit of a different Cody over the next few weeks.
Yeah, can't wait to see.
Hopefully.
Can't wait to see the Broncos, how they go in this week's games.
Against the Rabbits.
All right, so since we're on the Broncos, let's switch to the Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
All right, well, they're your team. Who's you start?
Okay, man. I was happy they finally won after 5 straight losses. But I just still seen a lot of weakness with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You just can't deny it. They weren't clinical at all. They let in 2 soft tries at the back end of the game where we're just lucky that time ran out, really. There was no time for the Titans to get back into this game because it was just so annoying to watch. But seeing Jason Tamalolo play so well, JT is starting to find form again. Those 2 guys, if they step up, Michael Morgan, if he can start finding his feet again, I still believe the Cowboys, we can get on a massive roll, a massive stretch, a winning streak that can get us back into that 8.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things Titans are sort of under scrutiny for this week, was letting the Cowboys get that bit of a confidence boost back. Because I think as soon as you start giving the Cowboys momentum, they will be impossible to stop. They'll be the unbeatable team.
They've been too predictable too, though, the Cowboys. And that's why teams have shut them out. Because their structure is the same structure that they've been playing with for the last 4 years under Paul Green. And so I see that teams are just starting to pick off, example, Panthers. Bulldogs.
Fisher Harris.
Yeah, Fisher Harris was targeting JT. They knew exactly where the plays were going to happen.
Yep.
So it's too structural. And Cowboys, it has been, one of our biggest strengths. At the same time now, this is a new year, and everyone's been targeting our structure and shutting out Morgan and Thurston. I think with Coop back kind of helps, but it's still, same thing. Coop's finding his feet because he hasn't played as much games as the other guys.
Yeah.
Just like Morgan had to come back. Yeah. I just hope that they can turn it around and win this game coming up this week. So that'll be great.
Yeah, okay. Now, look, I do see that, and I think it is interesting you say that about the attack being too predictable. I think most attacks over years, I remember watching the Broncos back when it was Corey Oates and Jack Reed out on the left-hand side, and nearly every game the Broncos played, first try of the game was always Corey Oates in the corner. It was always that play. Broncos don't use that anymore because you have to develop your attack. And that's something the Cowboys, I felt as if, as you touched on, they haven't really done. They've kept its structure over the past few years, and when you don't develop it or grow it in any way, shape, or form, it is really difficult to overcome your defense because they know what you're doing. They know all these tricks, right? They've studied your team.
Yeah, and that's why, for example, like the Tigers or the Warriors, unstructured teams.
Yep.
Just as much as being structured, especially the Warriors. Watching them this year, they're so structured these days, but they can have that second phase play, which the Cowboys are not notoriously known for. Just going through plays, getting up the field.
Yeah.
And that's what they need. That's what they need to start implementing into the game. The second phase ball. And I've been studying the Cowboys for 6 games, but especially after the 5 losses, just watching their game, and that you can just see it was just too predictable.
Yeah.
Well, let's carry on with this thing. And okay, so news came out of the Manly camp that bullying was happening with Jackson Hastings. So. And Cherry Evans has taken that on the chin, but you could tell at a press conference that that reporters were asking Cherry Evans about the Jackson Hastings feud or whatnot. But Nick, how do you feel about bullying inside one of the NRL sides?
It is disgraceful. There shouldn't be bullying any camp, but at the same time, there's a fine line between banter and bullying, and I think a lot of people distinguish that line differently. So whether Hastings is just too sensitive, or whether they've picked him as a little bit sensitive and then further attacked him on it, I'm not sure what the complete story is there. I don't think we'll ever know. But you can see it now that it's come out in the news. Manly just lost to the worst team in the competition right now. They got smashed by the worst team in the competition right now. So you can see how damaging it can be to a team culture. So once again, I don't know the full story. I don't know if there is bullying. I don't know if there is Hastings just being a little too sensitive and overworked about it. But it's damaging to the team culture, no matter what. In Exhibit A, 44 to, was it 12 or
10?
10, 44 to 10. So he shouldn't be a part of the game, and that's exactly why. It doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, man, agreed. Like 44-10 against the worst side in the NRL so far this season, is definitely an indicator of where you're like, okay, there is a problem at Manly. Because not only did they just lost there, they lost their previous game against the Tigers by a big margin.
That's correct.
So you can see it manifesting into the side, but there's no place for bullying. And we were just talking off here about Manly having that winning culture. For years and years, in the mid-2000s, 90s, 80s, they've had great players come through, and I don't think that any of them would tolerate things like that. And they've always been a tight-knit unit. For example, when the Stewart brothers were there, Steve Maddite, Jamie Lyon, Anthony Watnow, Jason King, all those guys that were there. And you could just see that they all played for each other. They were just, just as good as the Storm, and they were the Storm nemesis, So we know that how good that Manly side was. But I don't know, man. I don't understand this Manly era.
No, me neither. And I see Cherry Evans seems to be a bit of an instigator here. I feel as if he's a leader of that camp, and in considering he has accepted this sort of criticism, like yes, this is on me a little bit. I've contributed to this. That's really really damaging. I mean, mate, he's captain of the Seagulls,
Yep.
isn't he? So
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if Cameron Smith comes out and says he's been bullying other Storm players. You imagine any other captain coming out saying they've been bullying their players. It's just not on.
Yeah. Actually, to be honest, I would be very surprised if I heard that from Cameron Smith. Like, oh my god, man, that guy. But Cherry Evans, I kind of, he did a backflip on the Titans, so you kind of
You kind of expect it from him.
expect it. But at the same time, you're the leader.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be that guy that
stops it.
Yeah, that's right. Stops it, but always set a great example for everybody else that's coming into your team and your culture. You want to develop a good culture where, as in true words of a team sport, you don't like everybody in team sport. So I don't, you don't like, or you might not like a particular player, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the team and the success of the team, everyone has to galvanize together to, have a goal to win.
Yeah.
They all have to, follow through with it. Manly, eh?
Manly.
Lucky that's not Cowboys and Bronx, eh?
We'd be in trouble then.
Yeah, heck yeah. All right, man. Like talking about the Eels, beating Manly, and getting themselves out of the hole. What's your thoughts on that?
I want to give it a few more weeks before I say they've gotten out of the hole because, as we did just touch on, they beat an incredibly damaged squad. So I'm not willing to say they've dug themselves out of the hole just yet. I mean, they've still got a negative 72 points differential and they're still 1 from 7. So, I mean, yeah, it's somewhere to start. Don't get me wrong; it's a great foundation, but until they build on it, I'm not saying they've dug themselves out of the hole just yet.
Yeah, no. You know what? I'm actually happy with the Eels winning for the first time, although that did screw up my tipping. But seeing them trying to dig themselves out of a hole that they've created for themselves, really, because they were actually one of the favourites coming into the season.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But you know what? I'm happy with the return of Clint Gutherson. I'm a huge fan of that guy.
Yeah.
That guy, deserves all the accolades that's been thrown his way. And I was happy to find out that he was captain, made co-captain with Bo Scott and Tim Manor.
Yeah.
They need a guy like that. You could tell that he's a well-liked guy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he becomes captain. Look at him, 44-10. No one expected it. I didn't expect it to be the Manly side with, Tommy Durbo.
Yep.
And Jakey Jabojevic.
Yeah. DCE finally.
DCE, yeah. And it was just a big surprise, but I think I agree. And this fact is that we got to wait and see with the Eels.
Yeah.
But I do believe that if they click into gear, they'll find themselves back into the 8. But it's going to be a hard road because they're already on the back foot,
They are. And the next 5 games are Tigers in Parramatta, Sharks away, Bulldogs away, Warriors in Parramatta, and Broncos away. So I feel
Good luck.
I feel as if Bulldogs is going to be the only 50-50 game there where they're not the underdogs.
Yeah, if they win, we'll say 3 of those games, it's success for them.
That is a big, and I would say then they've dug themselves out.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, because those are good quality sides. Sam Burgess. So we're going onto the next topic. Sam Burgess being suspended again. Do you think that Sammy Burgess plays too aggressively, and it's a detriment to his side? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely a detriment to his side because they're losing. Their leading player of the forward pack consistently. So that's always going to hurt your team. But I think in the nature of the game, what he brings, his presence there, really does help the Rabbitohs, and it's a massive contributor to their wins. But I suppose you've got to look at that, at what cost is that acceptable? At what cost do you say, look, he can win us this one game if he's out for the next 3 or 4? I see it as too aggressive. I think he can probably, limit his presence a little bit or put a cap on what he's got now, sort of, drag it down a little bit and still have a massive impact on the game. as well as not putting himself at risk to be suspended every game he plays. So it's right now, I'd say the costs outweigh the benefits, but then again, he can easily fix that.
Yeah, I was trying to look for something to debate you on, but I have to totally agree. It's a huge detriment with what he does out on the field sometimes when he's too aggressive. I don't want him to lose that aggressiveness because that is Sam Burgess.
Yeah.
And he, like you said, he's the leader of their forward pack. He's a champion player. I consider him a champion player for the Rabbits with Inglis. Those two guys are the champion players. That they bring different skills, but they're so good. They're so good, and if Slam and Sam can stay out on that field, literally meaning not get suspended,
Yeah.
the Rabbitohs would actually go tenfold.
Yeah.
With the return of Inglis, I feel like that kind of lessens the blow of losing Sam for now, because we've seen them without Sam, and they still won.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was against the Roosters too. So that was one of the games. And if they can beat the Roosters, who are actually not playing in form, but still have the quality players around their park.
Yeah, you can't look at the Roosters side and say they're a bad team.
And the Rabbitohs, did a shock and awe tactic, blitzkrieg the Roosters, and I feel like that if players like Damien Cook step up, I think the Rabbitohs will be fine without slamming, but his aggressiveness, he's got to tone it down, and play smarter. That's what I'm trying to say. Play smarter, not aggressive, not too aggressive. That gets him into trouble, as we've seen, because this is the third suspension already. It's ridiculous.
It is bad.
Yeah,
it's very bad.
I know that you're going to take over the previews.
I will, but just before that, I did want to touch on the Billy Slater try.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Because I'm a Broncos fan, so obviously I'm screaming no try.
Oh, man.
But I wanted to get as someone who had a neutral opinion on it, doesn't go for the Broncos or the Storm, I just wanted to see what you thought.
Well, this is my thoughts on that, and it was a no try. It's simple. I've never heard of a rule that would allow a player to literally drop the ball, kick it without going for the post, and then scores that try. I felt sorry for the Broncos, but you could tell that Billy Slater knew he in his mind he thought he didn't score. He looked at he got back up. He wasn't satisfied. He said, "Nah, no try." Yeah, nah, no try, and he looked at the Broncos team saying, "Nah, no try." And then all of a sudden they want to look it up. It states in the rule books that a player that
if he had intention to kick it.
Intention to kick. He is allowed with the intent of drop kicking the ball, yes, and then scores a try. But that's like so murky because you would rather it be that he was going for a field goal, literally at the post, and then scores the try. It was a horrible kick, and he still scores the try. I think everyone would be fine with that.
Yeah.
But this wasn't the general play. This is about 5 meters out from the line.
Yeah.
How can you count that when they were they were on the right side of the post?
Yeah.
And away from it. Yeah, that's right.
Sideline.
And you're like, what the? They really, there's no transparency. There's nothing to tell you about what's the rule, and to see the Broncos fans all upset. I don't think that was the game changer, but it was a big play.
It was, and I think the grey area for me came with the word intent. How do you define Billy's intent there? How did they judge that? So, I mean, I know he was probably going to kick it because it was last tackle and he was doing a little bit of a grubber and chase, but he has lost control of the ball. And I think even if we have to implement the word intent, if we have to use that in the game, the only intent you'd have to drop kick would be to go for a field goal.
Yeah, exactly.
So to say there's intent for someone drop kicking in general play, especially for a grubber chase.
Well, I felt like that when he had the ball in his hands, he went, he dropped the ball. I think in his mind he was looking for the grubber, but he completely missed it.
Yeah.
Completely missed it, and then it dropped on the ground, and then he kicked it,
yeah.
which resulted into a drop goal or drop kick.
Yeah.
But in terms of a play like that, like you said, the intent,
Such a great area.
such a great area. It was that's why I feel like that at that stage of the match, the referees or the powers to be, or of be, is that they didn't go with common sense. They just went with the rule book when common sense should have prevailed in that instance.
Yeah.
Where it's obviously not a try when you drop a ball 5 meters out from the line.
Yeah. See, my issue is just when they said intent, and Billy, he's gotten up and
He acknowledged it.
acknowledged. That wasn't his idea. That wasn't his plan. I mean, I completely understand and stand by the fact we should never take players' celebrations into consideration when deciding whether it's a try or no try. Right? Complete rubbish if you do that. But nonetheless, he himself showed he didn't have intent to do what he did, and yet we're going to give him the intent as if he did it. So it's just such a murky area, as you said, and it's frustrating to deal with.
I think the biggest thing that's going to come out of it is that now teams know that that's a rule in the book. So if they deliberately go for a drop kick that they're not even close to the post, and that's not the intention, but now what's going to happen? Because it's going to be all murky. So if someone does do it, drop the ball,
as long as you
and then
quick
kick
enough.
it, that's right. If he reacts quick enough, they can still score that try. But you know for a fact that he actually knocked it on. So regardless if he drops the ball, and you knew it was going to be a knock on it, but if you put a foot to it, one bouncer put a foot to
It's
it.
in the rules.
Then
You're allowed
what?
to do
Yeah.
it.
Then what? So what are they going to say? Oh no, it's a knock on. Because if that happens, you just instantly think about the police later try.
Exactly.
So murky.
They've dug themselves into a bit of a hole here.
Yep.
Yep. Similar to Parramatta, I can't wait to see them dig themselves out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I think we'll move on to the previews of this round and our tips. So I think we'll do 4 each.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's all right with you?
Yeah, no rah. So yeah, 4 each.
First game. I'll ask this tip to you: Dragons or Roosters at Allianz Stadium?
That's a tough one. But you know what? I feel like that the Dragons should win this game.
Yeah.
I think that they're in better form.
Yeah.
They were up against another team that was in form. I felt like that Broncos game was just a hiccup by the Warriors. It didn't show that they had major weaknesses where, that it was just all those games that they won that were flukes.
Mm-hmm.
But so with the Dragons losing over there, they would rather lose to a team that's in form than that was out of form or trying to get themselves out of form.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the Roosters are not playing too well. Yeah, Dragons for the win.
I agree. All right, next tip. I'll do this one.
Yeah, nice.
This is Melbourne Storm versus the Warriors at AAMI Park.
Another game.
My mistake. These are both Anzac Day.
Anzac
Day games. See, it is such an issue. Their Warriors were so dominant over the Dragons. They were just such a good side.
So good.
But at the same time, I started to see sparks from Melbourne Storm. I started to really see them come out of their shell, especially against the Knights as well. It wasn't a completely one-off. They were able to score points.
Yeah, such a hard tip.
It is a very difficult tip, but Melbourne at home, I'm going to have to go with the Storm. I'm going to have to. It's very tough, but I'm going to have to. I can't go against them at home, especially with the form they're playing in.
And you just said that for the team that impressed you the most was the Warriors too. So you're going with the Storm?
I'm going to go with the Storm still. I stand by it. I think they're finding form. Next tip, Thursday night, 26th of April, ANZ Stadium. The Rabbitohs take on the Broncos. Hoonz?
In GI, I trust. I think the Rabbitohs will take this one. I don't know. There's some issues. I don't feel like the Broncos have issues. I don't know if they can beat a red hot Rabbitoh side that I'm actually surprised with. So
without McCulloch.
That's right. And with Galgai and Inglis, both sides of the field, strike power, Damien Cook down the middle, and the Burgess twins. I must give them credit as well. They're playing really well. They're in form. So they've got to be careful, like the Broncos, because Inglis, that's it. I can't pass that guy. I've gone against the Rabbitohs many times, and it's come back to haunt me.
Yeah.
So I would say Rabbitohs should win, and I know that your heart would say Broncos.
Look, my tip is Broncos, but I have no logic behind it, so I can't explain it other than loyalty. Friday night, the 27th of April, Manly take on Newcastle in Lottoland. I'm gonna have to say the Knights. I mean, Manly are just in a really bad slump at the moment, and I don't see them getting out of it for the next few weeks. And especially Knights coming off an upset against the Tigers. So yeah, it seems like a pretty easy tip to me.
Yeah, no, to the Knights. Knights were so impressive against the Tigers. So yeah.
Next match is Panthers versus the Bulldogs at Panthers Stadium. Who have you got?
There's always going to be an upset. And so far, it's shown in 2018 an upset would happen. I want to say I'm going to go with the Panthers, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bulldogs is the team that does the upset this week. Because it's ridiculous. My tipping is gone out the window. There's not just that consistency so far this year.
Yep.
I would go with Panthers, not confident, after their loss to the Sharks. So Panthers for the win.
Fair enough. Next tip, Gold Coast versus Cronulla at Cbus Super Stadium. Titans. They were in form the last few weeks, but the way they played last week to me was really disappointing. I think it wasn't a strong Cowboys side at all, and they were still showing the signs of weakness they'd shown the weeks before, and the Titans just weren't able to exploit that. So to me, that speaks to a really weak side, and I just have to go Cronulla, especially after beating the Panthers as well. The Panthers are a strong side, and Cronulla showed them up. Cronulla really did play well. So, I mean, to me, it seems like a pretty easy tip. I'm going to have to go Cronulla. Next match, and I'll do this one as well to avoid any issues. In 1300 Smile Stadium, the Cowboys take on the Raiders. I'm going to have to go to Cowboys. I think it was sort of a last-ditch effort last week. To me, if they'd lost last week, their season was essentially over. I didn't see them coming
going
back
down the drain badly.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think now that they've started to pick up a bit of momentum, a bit of strength, I definitely see them beating the Raiders side in North Queensland.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be a shock to me.
Well, a Raiders side that's out of form, so we're just lucky because it's not like that they're in form. I'm just happy that we won, they lost, but it's going to be closer than I can't just guarantee that the Cowboys are going to be dominant.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Moving on, Sunday the 29th of April, final match of the round, Parramatta take on the West Tigers at ANZ Stadium. Hoonz, who have you got?
Well, Parra just shown that there is life at the end of the tunnel, but with the West Tigers, their defence, I think a crucial moment in that night's game was when Benji came off for the HIA, and they really blew it. I think that if he was on that field, didn't go off for the HIA, I think that the game would have been completely different. When he came off, the Knights scored.
Yeah.
And that really made me realise, because the Tigers just struggled without him, without Benji. And then Benji comes in the second half and they took a massive lead, you know. So Tigers for the win. Their defence will be better. Ivan Cleary will make sure of that after the Knights comeback win.
Yep.
And I think the Eels will be admirable, but Tigers, too strong.
Fair enough.
In form. So is that it? Or that was the last game?
No, that was the last game.
Man. Oh, man. Well, to all our fans out there, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Hanging out with Hoonz and Nick.
This has been more of a casual podcast, hasn't it? We've had a little more time to discuss everything, and there hasn't been any sort of direction to it. It has just been a much more relaxed sort of environment. So without the fearless leader. Without our organiser.
Without our organiser. This has been actually a pretty successful podcast too so far. And it's been great to come back after 2 weeks off.
Yep.
And for everyone to listen and hear what we have to say. So in saying that, thanks for joining us on 20-Meter Restart, Agree to Disagree. I'm Hoonz.
I'm Nick.
Yeah, signing off.